How's everybody doing? With today being Independence Day, I've decided to review one of my favorite movies of all time, Jaws. Yes, this is in fact a 4th of July movie, and if you disagree, that's all I gotta say. Now, you might be wondering, yes, I have reviewed this movie before. This was back when I was first doing YouTube, like I said with my sleepaway camp stuff. I always wanted to do YouTube, didn't have the stuff. Go watch that video. I'll probably put a card up here so you can watch that. But when I first did YouTube, I got this little thing called Capwing, where you can only do videos for a certain amount of time, which was very stupid, but at the time that was only what I had and all I knew how to use it. And so I used that, but since I only had a limited amount of time, I would only give out negatives. I'm not proud of that review. Like my Sleepaway Camp short review, I'm not very proud of that review. I want to give this movie the review that it deserves. None of that bullshit where it's just Capwing, where I only have a certain amount of time. I'm going to sit here, take my time, and give you all of my thoughts on Jaws. And this is just a great movie, and the fact that I did that to this movie to where it's one of the most iconic movies ever made, and the fact that I sat there for only 4.5 minutes just saying negatives, basically nitpicks, no, that is not the review I'm going to do. This review, I'm going to do the review that I feel that needs to be done. But with that being said, let's just get on with it. My positives on Jaws is that whole opening segment where you get to the scene where the movie just clearly opens, where you can hear you can slowly hear the music pick up, where you just go, "What's going on?" And then you just see like the point of view of the shark, and then it shows a woman and then a guy about to go skinny dipping in the beach, like you do. And then all of a sudden, the guy just passes out on the beach because he's so drunk and all that, and the girl is just swimming out there all by herself, and then she's slowly pulled under. She at first she's like, "What?" And then she gets pulled under again. She's scared, but the third time she does it, she starts freaking out, and she's realizing what the hell's going on right now, and she's feeling pain everywhere. She's slowly getting eaten to death. She's getting tugged back and forth and all that. And a nice little Easter egg to that. Well, not Easter egg, a nice little behind the scenes fact about this is that when this movie was being made back in 1975, the which were we didn't have the equipment that they didn't have the equipment that we do today. And the thing is, when they were filming that entire scene, they had ropes around her, kind of like a collar, like around her waist, and they had like kind of like little ropes so they can just tug on her and all that. They weren't gonna tell her when they were gonna pull those ropes. They did not tell her when they were gonna do it. So they just randomly pulled her side to side. So all the acting that you're seeing in that scene is all real. That's legit fear because at first she didn't think those were the ropes. Sure, she was getting tugged back and forth, but she didn't know those were the actual ropes. She just thought that she was actually getting eaten, like dying, basically. Like that whole reaction that you see in this opening of this movie, it's all real. Now that's what I call great acting. Slowly dying and not being told what the hell's gonna happen. My next positive on this movie is that whole iconic music where you get John Williams, who has always been working with um Steven Spielberg. I don't almost forget his name. He's written a lot of great scores. He wrote this score, Jurassic Park score, E.T., Indiana Jones, if I'm not mistaken, also Saving Private Ryan. John Williams always has wrote great music for Steven Spielberg, and he never disappoints. He makes iconic scores to where every time you hear that, you just goes nostalgic. I love the theme song to this movie. It is iconic. They actually had to use that a lot to like show where the shark is and when it's gonna strike and all that. And the music's kind of like building up tense, like you can kind of get a hint that the shark's there, like when someone's about to die or when the shark's like around them. That music starts to kick in. You're like, oh, when that music starts playing, you all know you about to be fucked. That's a great theme. When I was younger, every time I heard that score, I was like, wow, this music's so amazing. But at the same time, it freaked me out because I knew that the shark was gonna show up. I remember when I was younger, my dad messed with me. I was in the bathtub where when I was getting ready for school, I would sit in a bath for a while and I would slowly fall asleep. Where I was just in the bathtub, kind of relaxed or kind of just dozing off because I was just waking up. My dad he turned on this Bluetooth speaker I have in my bathroom where I listen to music when I take a shower and all that. He started playing that thing. and I thought it was real. I thought I was in the moment where a shark was about to eat me, and I had this toy shark, like this stuffy thing, and he threw it into the bathtub, and I saw the shark, and I heard that music, and I was like, oh god. And this when I was younger. Would just be clear about that. I was young at the time, and I this was when I was stupid, and yeah, that happened to me. The music, it's very catchy, it's iconic, but it can be scary when it has to be, man. Love the main characters of this movie. You got Quint, you got Brody, and you even got Hooper. That and this can also say about the side characters like Chief Brody's wife and his kids and all that. Those characters are very interesting. I really like this main cast that we get. It's awesome. They're all very likable. Sure, Quint, like at times you're like, oh god, this guy's kind of an asshole, but you kind of understand him. But he's also just a very likable character. All these characters are all likable. I don't hate any of these characters. Not even when I was a kid. Even when I didn't care about characters, I've always liked these characters. Brody has always been my personal favorite, which I think a lot of people can say. He's just a very awesome character where he's just the chief of police of this little small Amity this little small town called Amity, and he's just trying to close down the beaches, but no one, like the mayor won't let him, and the people of the town won't let him because they're like, so what if there's a shark? We need money and we want to swim. No one wants to listen to him. They think he's crazy. They don't want to believe there's a shark, but he's just but yeah, yeah, even the mayor, I mean, he's an asshole. He's greedy as fuck. He doesn't care if people die. He just wants to see people swim. Yeah, he's an asshole, and he could be more of a villain than the shark, but I don't hate him. And Hooper, he's the shark expert. What else do you want from him? He's awesome. He's a big shark nerd. I mean, I bet we when we were all younger, we were all shark nerds. Hell, I bet there's a bunch of dinosaur nerds out there. Why can't there be a shark nerd? Just why not? And Quint, what is there to say about him? He's cool. And I'm going to get more into him later. All these characters, very likable, all lovable, and it's a shame when you see some, if they were to die, you'd be upset. I know how I felt when someone died. In the movie, anyways. Weirdos. Usually something I usually don't talk about in movies, and that is the cinematography. Now, like I said, I'm going to talk about it much in movies, because sometimes they're not worth mentioning. Yeah, we've seen better than this, but, oh god. This movie kind of kickstarted some of the cinematography that we see today, like the shark stuff. That's very cool, and it's very rare when you watch like these old movies and the cameras are always steady. Like when you watch movies now, that there's a lot of shaky cams. When you even when you go back, there's a lot of shaky cams sometimes. But it's very rare when you watch old movies that there's just like a steady camera and it's not shaking or it's just like all messed up. It's just perfect the way it is. Like they had to use a lot of camera work so they could see like the point of view of the shark and all that so they can like track it down and all that. There's one specific camera shot in this movie that really stands out to me and it made a lot of movie history that shows a lot in movies now is where you got this cool little cinematography shot where at the beach, after the mayor tells Brody that there is no shark, that he should just keep the beaches open, there's one shot where Brody is sitting there, and all of a sudden, this kid gets eaten, and then you get this cool shot where it's called the vertigo shot or the jaw shot, where you simply zoom in as you zoom out. A lot of people call it the trombone shot, which, yes, I understand why. That's a very cool shot. That's rarely where I ever will talk about it. It's very rare will I ever talk about it. It's very cool to see this type of cinematography. A lot of the camera work in this movie is very iconic, especially that one shot that I just talked about. It's very rare where I will talk about cinematography, and this is the first movie where I actually talk about it. Congrats. I like the beach setting of this movie for this being a shark movie and an Independence Day movie where yes, this movie takes place on the ocean where but a lot of the first half of this movie takes place on the beach, which you should expect if this movie's about a killer shark, they better utilize that fucking good with a beach setting where it shows like good sides to it. People are just relaxing, have a good time swimming, and then it shows mayhem and death. Good job. I really like that. It's a very cool setting when you show about a killer, about about killer shark, a killer fish, and all that. It better use it because if you don't, why are you making a shark movie? What's your point here? I think the kills in this movie are pretty good for this being a horror movie or a thriller, whatever the fuck you want to say. The kills in this movie are unique. Sure, that's just generic, eating people and they die. But I felt all of these kills were awesome. Especially, like I said, I already mentioned the opening kill of this movie. And then you got the little boy, which is, sure, he's just getting eaten, but that's a kid. That was like a 10-year-old kid. Rarely do you ever see a 10-year-old kid get killed in a movie nowadays. But yet again, they probably just don't have the balls to do that anymore. God, I miss the 70s. You even got this like cool jump scare in this movie, which is another kill in this movie where uh, Hooper just goes to like kind of look for the Great White, but they see a boat at like him and Brody and Hooper when they're looking for the Great White. They just see this boat out in the middle of the ocean, and he just goes check it out, takes out a great white tooth. But then this jump scare just happens where a dead body just comes out where the shark killed him. That is one of the greatest jump scares in film history. I'm just gonna say that now. You don't see what happens, but it pays off very greatly with just a simple jump scare. And then you get the one guy where after the shark is like at the pond scene where the kids are just on the yacht just kind of tying a knot and the guy just goes over there to check on him and he gets knocked off the boat and he just gets like pulled under and all that's left of him is just his leg that just goes to the bottom of the ocean. Well, that's a very gnarly death there. And then you get Quint, who just gets tacked, which is the best kill in this movie, where he just slowly just slides into the shark's mouth and he's just slamming him against the side of the bow, and he's just trying to fight for his life, stabbing him with this knife he has, trying to fight for his life, and then you just hear as he just bites down, you can just hear the crunch, and it's just gnarly, and then he starts to spit out blood, and then he's just dragged underwater and slowly eaten. Gnarly death. And a hell of a way to go out. Sure, kills, like I said, the kills are just simple. They get eaten and then they die. But they use it at a great advantage. One of the few 70s movies where, along with two other movies, where I feel this movie does not age a bit. There's not one scene or one part of this movie where I feel it ages. This is one of the few movies in history where it does not age. Like some of the dialogue in this movie, it feels modern. Like maybe Steven Spielberg was probably thinking like, in like 40 years, some of the some way people talk will be changed. Let's kind of change that up a bit. That's how you can tell Steven Spielberg is a great director, where he can use practical effects, great camera work, great setting, great characters, great dialogue. That's how you know Steven Spielberg is a great director when he makes a movie that doesn't age. Like it feels modern. Like it honestly feels like this movie feels like it was only made like 10 years ago. That's how modern this movie feels, and that's how great this movie ages. It ages perfectly, and that is one of few movies where I can say that to. I like how this movie kind of keeps it a mystery in a way, but at the same time, this was kind of like an accident where they don't show the shark much. Where in this movie, that wasn't the original plan. The original plan was to show the shark like throughout the entire movie. But since they didn't have the computer generation that we had with CGI, they didn't have computers like I do. And so they had to think of something else. Since the mechanical shark, which was practical, hardly worked because it kept messing up. Like, especially one scene where Brody's like chucking fish into the water and then the shark comes out of the water. Now, that scene was hard to pull off because when they came out, it got stuck and started moving around and it wouldn't go back under the water like it does in the movie. That was a pain in the ass to do. So Steven Spielberg had to suggest that they hardly show the shark. Only way they would show it was by movement by other objects, barrels, camera work, and John Williams' classic score, like I already mentioned. That was the only way they could have showed the kind of give hints to the shark, which they showed to a great advantage, which I think is done pretty good. And it also kind of shows like the point of view of the characters, like the way they see the shark, which they just show the shark by like the barrels, by the piece of wood, by the music in a way. We see the shark by the way these characters are seeing the shark, which is a very great effect. And to top off all of my positives is one of the greatest movie oh god, what am I looking for? Dialogues in history. And that is when Quint gives talk. Oh God, I can't speak. Is when he says his entire backstory, where he was part of the USS Indianapolis, the sinking, and the fellow shark attack, where he said that where Quint and Hooper and the chief were all bonding a drunken game of like showing off their scars and all of that. He Brody recognizes that there's a mark on his arm, but he says that's a tattoo removal of the USS Indianapolis tattoo that he got, and he starts to talk about what happened that two Japanese torpedoes slammed into the side of their ship, and then 1,100 men went into the water, and then they didn't know what to do, so they kind of got into groups basically, and then after a while, when they were in there, sharks started to eat them one by one, and then he started to say that sharks started to eat 6 people an hour at least, and they were in the ocean for like 3 days. They said, and the scariest part, no one knew where they were. Their their mission was so secret that they didn't tell anybody. The Coast Guard didn't even know. That's how secret that their mission was, so the Japanese or or the Nazis wouldn't know that we were coming at the time. And he just starts to give up this dialogue of like how all these sharks started to eat all of them, and then he just goes, "The thing about sharks, Chief, is that they got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes." And then you can just see the fear in Brody and Hooper as he's just talking about it, like, what the fuck, man? And then even at the final end of where he just says the date, June 29th, 1945, when he says that date, he kind of hesitates to say it. Like, at first, you can tell, like, he doesn't want to say it. Like, he's scared to. That is a date he will never forget. That is, that date that was the day that he was saved, because even when they came to save him, they saved a bunch of them, but he was the final one to get on that safety helicopter or ship, and he even says that was the time he was most frightened, because he was just waiting for his turn, because he thought he was going to get eaten the entire time he was there. That is one of the most classic movie dialogues in film history, and one of the greatest performances I've ever seen from an actor. From the entire, it's also one of the scariest movie scenes ever. That is the scariest scene in this movie. Like, you don't see any of it, but you have to picture it. And that's how scary it is. It doesn't show you. You just have to picture it. And just from the dialogue, it's just terrifying. Very rarely will you get somebody scared from just dialogue and not showing anything. That is how you do that. That is how you do a great scary moment and just a classic movie dialogue scene in film history. That is how you do it. Well, guys, I have no negatives with this movie. I have no mixed things about this movie. I have basically no negatives about this movie. Please don't talk about my old video. Those were nitpicks. I don't like to talk about those. But this is a downright perfect movie. I love this movie. It's a movie I love to watch every summer. It's a movie I love to watch every July 4th. This is a movie where I definitely recommend that you go out and buy it. What do you guys think of Jaws? Is this one of your favorite movies like me, or for some reason do you not like this movie? Let me know in the comments below and we will talk about it. And if you like this video, like it. If you love it, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you will get notified for my latest videos. But until my next video, take care.